Whenever conservatives talk about the Middle East, they often like to champion around the superiority of Western values, those of freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I agree wholeheartedly with all of these things, but I think we've seen in a couple months prior to this, for anyone with a good memory, that conservatives have been, in a certain way, very much against freedom of expression, specifically a certain kind of expression, which is, I would say, gender expression. You on your show a couple months ago said that you thought it was fine for sort of local municipalities to say a law that would ban women from wearing a type of clothing that men wear, or men wearing a type of clothing that women wear, would not be sort of in the bounds of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment refers to laws made by Congress. So I'm wondering, with these sort of anti-drag laws, with laws that might ban people from wearing certain types of clothing, do these not go against these sort of Western values of freedom of expression that conservatives usually champion, and the freedom for LGBT people when we talk about in comparison to the Middle East, as we have just done in this sort of...
So it's a great question. I don't believe in freedom of expression. I believe in freedom of political speech. There's a difference. The founders believed in freedom of political speech as well. That didn't mean that you got to dress up naked on a street corner, right? Because the fact is that everything can theoretically be considered a form of expression, and even people who are ardent libertarian fans of freedom of expression understand that there are limits to what counts as expression, but nobody can agree on exactly what those limits are. As far as what I've said about localism, one of the things that I'm very big on, obviously, is localism. And we see this in, for example, in HOA. In your HOA, in our HOA, for example, you can't just post anything you want in your window. There's an agreement with the people who live in the neighborhood that you're not allowed to just put whatever you want on your front lawn. You can't just park a rusted van on your front lawn, for example. There's nothing that violates freedom of expression or freedom of speech about that. That's what your local community has decided. Now, as you abstract that out to a broader and broader level, the freedom has to grow from that level of government because there's less homogeneity as you move up the chain. So I'm very much in favor of the idea that local communities get to make decisions for themselves on a local level, but as you abstract up the chain with more and more people who are not like you, the government has to take a lighter and lighter hand. So when it comes to, for example, broad statements like freedom of speech or freedom of expression, I would say that not every space, I mean, the Supreme Court has said this, not every space is created equivalent in these circumstances.